It was still dark when Eli woke up to a soft, strange sound. The sound came again. 3 slow knocks on his wooden door. He looked at the clock. It was 4:12 a.m. No one ever came to his small cabin at this hour. The place was deep in the forest, far from any town. The air outside was cold and wet from the night rain. He rubbed his eyes and walked to the door, half asleep. His heart started beating faster. Something about those knocks felt different. They were not random. They were careful, almost gentle, like someone was afraid to be heard. Eli opened the door halfway. The cold air rushed in, and there she was. A woman stood at his doorstep, glowing faintly under the silver moonlight. Her skin had a soft blue shimmer, her hair long and silver like liquid metal. Her eyes, bright violet, looked familiar. Too familiar. She was holding something in her arms, a child, small, wrapped in a gray cloth. The child's tiny hands glowed faintly, like little stars. Eli froze. His breath caught in his chest. He knew that face. He had seen it years ago on another planet, during the final months of the human-Serenai War. She was Alara, the alien woman who once saved his life, the one who vanished without a word. Alara, he whispered. Her lips trembled. She didn't answer. Rain ran down her cheeks, mixing with tears. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept for days. The child in her arms stirred and made a soft sound, half cry, half hum. "She's yours," Alara whispered finally. Her voice was shaking. "She's ours." Eli's mind went blank. The world seemed to stop. He looked at the baby, then back at her. "What do you mean, ours?" But Alara didn't reply. She took one step back, her eyes full of pain and fear. "They found me," she said. "They will come for her. You must protect her." "Wait, who?" "Alara, talk to me." But before Eli could reach her, a beam of bright light flashed in the sky. A small aircraft hovered above the trees, its engines humming like thunder. Alara looked up, terrified. She pressed her lips to the baby's forehead, then pushed the child gently into Eli's arms. "Please," she whispered. "Take care of her." The light grew brighter. Eli covered his eyes. When he looked again, Alara was gone. The rain fell harder, the aircraft disappeared into the clouds, and silence returned. Eli stood there, barefoot, holding the glowing child. His hands were shaking. The baby looked up at him with those same violet eyes. Alara's eyes. "Who are you?" he whispered, though he already knew the answer. The baby reached out and touched his cheek. Her tiny fingers were warm, almost electric. For a second, Eli saw a flash in his mind, a memory that wasn't his, a silver city, a woman running, soldiers shouting in alien tongues. Then it was gone. He carried the child inside and closed the door. The room was dim, lit only by the small light of the fire. He laid the baby on a blanket and stared at her, unsure what to do. She wasn't crying. She just looked around, curious, calm. He found a small bottle, filled it with warm milk, and tried to feed her. She accepted it easily, as if she had done this before. "You really are half human," he said softly. "Alara, what have you done?" Then he noticed something else. The baby had a small pendant around her neck, an alien crystal glowing faintly blue. He picked it up and turned it over. Symbols shimmered across the surface, old Serenai language. He didn't understand it fully, but one word was clear. Lyra. He whispered the name. Lyra. The baby smiled. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Eli walked to the window and looked out. The forest was quiet, but he could feel it. Someone was out there, watching, waiting. He locked the door and checked the old blaster he kept in the drawer. The last time he used it was years ago, when he swore he'd never get involved with alien wars again. But tonight felt different. He turned toward the sleeping child. She was peaceful, glowing softly in the firelight. Eli whispered to himself, If they come for you, they'll have to go through me first. Outside, hidden between the dark trees, two faint red lights blinked, eyes of a hunter drone. It scanned the house silently before vanishing into the mist. The long night had just begun. Morning light slipped through the cracked curtains when Eli woke. For a second he thought the night had been a dream. The rain, the woman, the strange child. But then he heard soft humming from the living room. He walked out quietly, and there she was, the baby from last night, sitting on the rug, humming in a strange language. The sound was calm yet haunting, like an old song from the stars. Her name, Lyra, echoed in his mind again. She looked up as if she had heard his thoughts. "Lyra," Eli said softly. She smiled and said the same word back. "Lyra." Then she pointed at him and said, "Lee." He froze. She spoke his name perfectly. No baby could speak that clearly, not at her age. Something about her wasn't normal. When Eli tried to feed her breakfast, she already knew what he was about to do. Before he even reached for the milk, she turned her eyes to the cupboard. When he thought about making her porridge, she touched the pan first. It was as if she could hear his thoughts. He sat down slowly, watching her. "Can you understand me?" he asked. Lyra looked at him with those violet eyes, glowing faintly in the morning light. Then she nodded. A chill ran through Eli's body. He turned on his old communicator pad, something he hadn't used in years. It was broken, dusty, and should not have worked. But the moment Lyra looked at it, the screen flickered to life. Lines of alien code appeared, symbols glowing across the cracked glass. Then a single message in old Serenai script appeared. "She's being hunted. Protect the child." Eli's heart pounded. The communicator shouldn't have had any signal. It was disconnected from all networks long ago. He turned to Lyra, who was staring at the screen like she understood every word. "Who sent that?" he asked quietly. Lyra raised her tiny hand and touched the screen. It blinked again, showing an image, a blurred face of Alara, the alien woman from last night. Her voice played softly through static. "Eli, if you see this, I can't come back yet. They found me. They want her. Keep her safe. She is more than you think." The message cut off. Eli gripped the communicator tightly. "Alara, what have you done?" he whispered. That night the forest was quiet again, but Eli couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made him tense. He sat near the window with his blaster ready. Lyra slept peacefully, her little pendant glowing beside her. Then something strange happened. Around midnight the room's lights flickered. Lyra opened her eyes suddenly as if she felt something. She looked toward the door and said one word. "Danger." Before Eli could move, a faint red light appeared outside, hovering. His heart raced. He crawled to the window and peeked through the curtain. A drone, small, round, and alien-made, floated silently, scanning his house. Eli turned off every light, but Lyra stood up from her blanket and walked toward the window. "No," he whispered and grabbed her hand. But the drone had already detected movement. A bright beam shot through the glass, missing them by inches. The sound was sharp and quick. Eli dove behind the couch with Lyra in his arms. He fired back with his blaster. The beam hit the drone, and it crashed into the mud outside. Smoke rose. Silence returned. Lyra looked up at him calmly and said, "More come." Eli's blood went cold. "How do you know that?" She pointed to her head. "I hear them." He realized she wasn't guessing. She could feel the others, like she was connected to them somehow. Maybe through her Serenai blood. He picked her up, grabbed his emergency pack, and started sealing the doors with metal sheets. The communicator blinked again with a new message. "They will find you. Move before sunrise." Eli knew it was Alara. She must still be alive. Somewhere out there, watching. He whispered to Lyra, "We'll leave before dawn. I promise." The child rested her head on his shoulder, whispering softly, "Mama said you'd come." Eli froze. "What did you say?" Lyra's voice grew faint. "Mama said, You would protect me until she returns. Her small hand glowed blue for a moment, and Eli felt warmth spread through his chest, easing his fear. She was powerful, but innocent. Outside, in the dark forest, faint shapes moved between the trees, 3 tall figures with glowing red visors. The hunters had arrived. Eli loaded his weapon and looked at Lyra. I don't know what you are, little one, he said softly, but they're not taking you. He peeked out the window again. Their shadows were closer now. Lyra's pendant pulsed faster, as if warning him. Eli took a deep breath, gripping his weapon. The war he thought was over was about to begin again, and this time it was for his daughter. The night after the drone attack was long and cold. Eli barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Alera's face, wet with rain, full of fear, and the words she had left behind. Protect the child. He sat near the window, his blaster resting on his lap. Lyra was asleep in the corner, her pendant glowing softly like a heartbeat. Outside, fog wrapped around the forest, thick and silent. He couldn't tell if the hunters were still out there, but he could feel them. Watching. Waiting. When the first light of morning touched the trees, Eli decided it was time to move. He couldn't stay here anymore. He packed food, energy cells, and a small fuel core for his old hover jeep. Then he lifted Lyra gently. She woke without crying, looking at him calmly. Where are we going? She asked in her soft voice. Eli smiled faintly. Somewhere safe. They drove down the muddy path that led away from the cabin. The fog thinned as the sun rose and the old metal towers of the abandoned outpost came into view. It had once been a human research station. Now it was just dust and broken machines. But Eli knew there was something there that might help. His old log files from the war. When they entered the main hall, the air was thick with dust. The walls were covered in vines. Old human posters about peace missions still hung torn and faded. Lyra looked around curiously. Did you live here? She asked. Once, Eli said quietly. A long time ago. He found a working console buried under debris and brushed it clean. The screen flickered when he powered it up. After a few tries, the system booted, showing his name, Captain Eli Wren, and the year when everything changed. He searched through the old mission logs until one file stopped him cold. The title read, Operation Dawnfire, Contact with Serenai Envoy Alera. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. A video played, grainy and faded. It showed a younger Eli in uniform, standing on a foreign world. Next to him stood Alera, beautiful and calm, her silver hair catching the alien sun. In the recording, she said, Our worlds can live together, Eli, but your leaders fear us. My father, he fears you. Eli remembered that day clearly now. He had been part of a peace team sent to end the human Serenai war. But instead, he had found love. Something forbidden by both sides. The recording continued. If they find out about us, Alera said, they'll call it betrayal. But I don't care. Then the memory faded. Eli shut off the console and sat in silence. He finally understood. Alera hadn't abandoned him. She was forced to leave. Someone powerful, maybe even her own family, had taken her away. Lyra walked up beside him and touched his arm. You miss her, she said softly. He nodded, unable to speak. Then the console beeped again, showing a blinking signal, a distress beacon. It wasn't from Earth. The coordinates pointed far beyond the human colonies, deep into Serenai space. Eli zoomed in on the data. The source code carried a familiar encryption, Alera's signature. His pulse quickened. She's alive, he whispered. Lyra looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. Mama, she said with a small smile. Before Eli could respond, the ground beneath them trembled, the air filled with a strange humming sound. He grabbed Lyra and ducked behind a wall just as a laser beam cut through the ceiling. Dust and metal fell everywhere. From the smoke, a tall, armored figure stepped out, its armor black with red marks glowing along its chest. It spoke in a cold alien voice. Return the child. Eli aimed his blaster. Over my dead body. The hunter raised a weapon. Before it could fire, Lyra's pendant glowed bright blue. A shockwave burst out, knocking the alien off its feet. The energy flickered like lightning, bending metal and shattering glass. Eli stared in disbelief. Lyra was floating slightly, her eyes shining white. She wasn't afraid. She was calm, powerful. The hunter scrambled to retreat, its voice trembling. The child carries the queen's light. Then it vanished in a flash of red light, leaving behind only scorched ground. Eli rushed to Lyra and held her close. Her glow faded, and she fell asleep instantly in his arms. He whispered to her, voice shaking, "What are you, little one?" The communicator on his wrist buzzed again. A new message appeared. "Find me before they do. The key is on the moon of Vera." It was her, Alara, alive, still reaching out across the stars. Eli looked out through the broken wall at the bright horizon. The war he thought was long over was calling him back. But this time he wasn't fighting for a side. He was fighting for his family. He picked up the pendant that now glowed softly in his hand. "Hold on, Alara," he said. "We're coming." And as the wind whispered through the ruins, the faint hum of engines echoed in the distance, more hunters arriving. The chase had just begun. The sound of engines grew louder in the distance. Eli didn't waste a second. He lifted Lyra in his arms, grabbed the small fuel core, and ran out of the broken research station. The morning air was sharp and heavy with dust. Behind him, the building that once held his memories now felt like a trap waiting to close. "Hold on tight," he said, setting Lyra in the passenger seat of his old hover jeep. She was still half asleep, her tiny hand clutching the glowing pendant against her chest. The jeep's engine coughed to life. Eli drove fast, bouncing over cracked ground and dry roots. Behind him, streaks of red light sliced through the air. The hunters had arrived. Lyra turned her head and looked back. Her voice was calm, too calm for a child. "They are 3. One leads. He hates you." Eli didn't ask how she knew. He had stopped questioning her strange sense. "Then let's make him regret finding us," he muttered. He steered hard to the right, heading toward a narrow canyon, an old mining zone from the war days. He had hidden there once before. The hunters' ships were faster, but the canyon's tight walls might give him cover. Rocks exploded as laser fire hit the ground behind them. Eli's hands gripped the wheel tighter. He could hear the high-pitched scream of alien engines closing in. One of the hunters' crafts swooped low. A metal claw extended from its belly, reaching for the jeep. Lyra suddenly raised her hand, and the pendant around her neck flashed bright blue. The claw froze mid-air, then snapped backward, crushing the drone that carried it. The explosion shook the jeep. Eli looked at her in shock. "Lyra, what did you just do?" She blinked slowly, her voice faint. "Mama taught me," she said. "The light listens." Eli didn't understand it, but there was no time to think. The canyon appeared ahead, tall cliffs on both sides. He drove straight in, the walls closing around them. Inside the canyon, the air grew darker. The sound of engines echoed between the rocks. He parked behind a fallen ridge and cut the engine. Silence. Only the sound of wind. Eli checked his blaster and whispered, "Stay down." He moved toward the entrance, hiding behind boulders. The first hunter ship glided overhead, its red scanners sweeping the area. Then, from the shadows, 3 armored figures landed on the ground, tall with black suits that shimmered like liquid metal. One of them, the leader, spoke in a cold voice that echoed through the canyon. "Human Eli Wren, return the child. She does not belong to you." Eli's voice came back firm. "You're right. She doesn't belong to anyone." The leader tilted his head. "You protect her out of love. How primitive." Eli smirked slightly. "Maybe, but love's stronger than your orders." Then the fight began. The hunters fired energy blasts, lighting up the canyon. Eli rolled behind rocks, firing back. His blaster hit one of them square in the chest, sending sparks flying. But the leader was faster. He jumped high, landing behind Eli. Eli turned just in time to block the strike with his arm guard. Pain shot through his body as the alien blade cut across his shoulder. Lyra screamed. Her pendant pulsed violently, sending out a wave of blue energy. The hunter froze mid-motion, armor cracking under the light. He dropped his weapon and fell to one knee, growling. Eli took the chance, firing again. The blast hit the hunter's mask, breaking it. For a moment, Eli saw his face, a mix of metal and flesh, eyes burning with hatred. "You can't hide forever," the hunter hissed. "She carries the blood of the queen. Every star will hunt her." Before Eli could respond, the hunter activated a small beacon and vanished in a beam of red light, teleporting away with his injured soldiers. Silence filled the canyon again. Eli dropped to his knees, breathing hard. His shoulder burned, but he was alive. He looked back at Lyra, who was sitting quietly, her eyes glowing softly. She whispered, "He knew Mama." Eli nodded slowly. "Yes, and now we know what they're after." He stood up and looked at the horizon beyond the canyon. Somewhere out there, across space, was Alara, trapped or hiding, waiting. Eli pressed the pendant against his palm. "Your mother's message said to find her on the moon of Vera. That's where we're going." Lyra looked up at him and smiled faintly. "Then we must hurry. The stars are listening." Eli helped her back into the jeep and restarted the engine. As the vehicle hummed to life, he glanced once more at the empty canyon. Shadows danced along the walls, quiet, watching. He knew this wasn't over. He whispered to himself, "If they want a fight, they'll get one." Then the jeep lifted into the air, heading toward the mountains, and the unknown beyond Earth's sky. Far above, hidden among the clouds, a massive alien ship uncloaked. Its captain looked down at the small fleeing vehicle and said coldly, "The human moves toward Vera. Prepare the fleet." The hunt was only beginning. The night sky was alive with stars as Eli's old ship lifted from Earth's surface, leaving behind the only home he had known. The engines groaned from age, but they still carried power, a mix of human mechanics and alien energy cells he had collected over the years. Beside him sat Lyra, strapped in, her eyes wide with wonder as she watched the Earth grow smaller and smaller through the window. "This is your first time in space," Eli said with a faint smile. Lyra nodded. "It feels like home." Her answer made him glance at her. There was something in her tone, something calm and ancient, like she had been here before. Maybe part of her remembered her mother's world, the Serenai homeworld she had never seen. Eli focused on the coordinates blinking on his screen. The moon of Vera, the place Alara's last message had mentioned, was far beyond the regular human travel zone. That region was marked forbidden space after the war. Any human ship entering was considered a threat. "Hang tight, Lyra," Eli said. "We're going somewhere no human has been in years." Hours passed as the ship flew through empty darkness. Stars stretched like streaks of light as they entered hyperspace. Lyra slept peacefully, her pendant glowing softly against her chest. Every now and then Eli would look at her and think about Alara, how she used to smile when she talked about the stars, how her voice softened whenever she spoke of peace between their worlds. But now, peace felt like a dream that belonged to another lifetime. When the ship finally dropped out of hyperspace, the moon of Vera came into view. It floated near a dying planet, half covered in clouds and lightning storms. The moon itself was gray and scarred with craters, but one side shimmered faintly blue, as if energy pulsed beneath its surface. "That's it," Eli whispered. "Vera." Before he could begin the descent, the radar beeped. 3 signals appeared on the screen, moving fast. "Not again," Eli muttered, gripping the controls. Lyra opened her eyes instantly. "They followed us," she said, voice quiet but sure. Laser fire lit up the void. Eli jerked the ship sharply to the left as a red beam sliced past the hull. Metal screeched. The enemy ships closed in, black triangles with glowing crimson wings. "Hold on," he shouted. He spun the ship into the moon's thin atmosphere, diving through clouds and lightning. The shaking grew worse. Sparks flew from the control panel. Lyra reached out, touching the ship's dashboard with her glowing hand. Suddenly, the flickering light stabilized. Eli looked at her, stunned. You're fixing it. The ship listens, she said simply. With her touch, the engines roared stronger. Eli grinned and pushed the throttle. They sped through a canyon of rock and storm, the enemy ship struggling to keep up. One of them clipped a lightning surge and exploded in fire. They finally landed on the far side of the moon, hidden behind a ridge. The ship hissed as it cooled. Eli powered everything down. He turned to Lyra. You okay? She nodded, tired, but okay. Eli opened the hatch and the moon's air shimmered faintly around them. It was thin but breathable. The ground beneath their boots glowed in faint blue patterns, lines shaped like veins spreading through the dust. What is this place? He whispered. Lyra looked down, her pendant pulsing brighter. It's where Mama learned to speak with the light. Eli frowned. Speak with the light? Before she could answer, a shadow appeared between the rocks. A tall figure in dark armor. Eli raised his blaster instantly, but the figure lifted its hand in peace. I'm not your enemy, the voice said, deep and rough. The figure stepped closer, revealing glowing tattoos and worn battle scars. I am Kale, a former soldier of the Serenai. Your woman, Alara, saved my life once. Eli lowered his weapon slowly. You know where she is? Kale nodded. She is alive, but imprisoned. The High Council calls her a traitor for loving a human. Her child, your child, is the key they fear. That's why they sent hunters. Eli clenched his jaw. Then we're going to free her. Kale's eyes glowed faintly. You will need more than courage, human. The Queen's fortress is protected by her father's army, but there are those who still believe in her dream. He turned toward the mountains where faint lights shimmered in the distance. Come, the rebellion will help you reach her. Eli looked down at Lyra. She smiled softly as if she already knew. As they followed Kyle across the glowing plains, Eli looked up at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, Alara was waiting, still fighting, still hoping, and for the first time in years, Eli felt something stronger than fear. He felt purpose. The journey to the forbidden world had begun, and this time, he wasn't just a soldier. He was a father on a mission to bring back the woman he loved and protect the child who carried the light of two worlds. The sky of Vera's sister planet burned violet and gold as Eli. Lyra and Kale crossed the last ridge before the fortress city. In the distance stood a vast structure carved into black crystal. Towers rising like blades, walls shining with strange energy. It was both beautiful and terrifying. That's the Serenai Royal Citadel, Kale said quietly. Where they keep her. Eli looked through his old binoculars. He saw hundreds of guards, tall, silver-armored warriors marching in patterns. The fortress glowed with force shields and fighter drones circled above like hawks. How do we even get in? He asked. Kale pointed toward a shadowed side canyon. There's an old drain tunnel beneath the eastern wall. I used it once when I escaped. Eli nodded. Then that's our way. Lyra stood between them, clutching her pendant. She was quiet but calm, her eyes glowing faintly as she looked toward the fortress. She's there, she whispered. Mama's light is calling. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll bring her back, I promise. They moved at night, hiding in the rocky trenches. The twin moons above cast silver light on their faces. Every sound, every whisper felt like it could give them away. Kale led them to a deep pit covered by ancient metal plates. Beneath it, the old tunnel stretched into darkness. Eli climbed down first, helping Lyra follow. The air was cold and damp. Their footsteps echoed softly. The tunnel led them beneath the heart of the fortress. Strange humming vibrations moved through the walls, alien machines working far above them. When they reached a sealed gate, Kyle used a small device to hack the lock. Sparks flashed and the door slid open with a low hiss. Beyond it was a long hall lined with glowing crystal cells, and in one of them, kneeling weakly, was Alara. Eli froze. His breath caught in his throat. Even in the dim light, she was radiant. Her silver hair had grown longer, tangled, but her eyes, those same violet eyes, still carried warmth. Alara, he whispered. She turned her head slowly, disbelief crossing her face. Eli? Her voice trembled. For a second, time seemed to stop. He rushed to the energy barrier, his hands pressing against it. I found you. I thought you were gone. Tears filled her eyes. You shouldn't have come. They'll kill you if they find you here. He shook his head. I didn't come alone. Lyra stepped forward from behind Kale, her pendant glowing softly. Alara's eyes widened as she saw her daughter for the first time. She covered her mouth, whispering, "Lyra." Lyra smiled shyly. "Mama." Alera pressed her hand against the barrier. Lyra placed her tiny hand on the same spot. The crystal wall flickered, reacting to their touch. Blue light danced between them, mother and daughter connected by something deeper than science. Suddenly, alarms blared through the fortress. Red lights flashed everywhere. Kale cursed under his breath. "They know we're here." Eli pulled out his blaster. "Can you shut this barrier down?" Alera shook her head. "The control core is above in the royal chamber. You'll need to reach it to release me." Kyle nodded. "I'll guide you." "The guards will be coming." Eli turned to Alera. "Hold on, I'm getting you out." Before he left, Alera whispered, "Eli, if they capture you, promise me you'll protect her." He gave a small smile. "You don't need to ask. She's our light." They ran through the lower corridors, blasters ready. Guards appeared from both sides, firing energy bolts. Eli and Kale returned fire, moving fast, covering each other. Lyra stayed behind them, her pendant glowing brighter with every shot fired. At the end of the hall stood the control core, a large sphere pulsing with red energy. Kale started overriding it, but the system was locked. "It's linked to royal DNA," he said. "Only a Serenai of royal blood can shut it down." Eli looked at Lyra. "Then it's her." Lyra stepped forward. The machine responded instantly, the red energy turning blue under her touch. She closed her eyes, whispering softly in her alien tongue. The whole fortress shook as energy waves spread through the walls. One by one, the prison cells opened. Alera's cell flickered and vanished. She stepped out, weak but free. The moment she appeared at the end of the hall, Eli ran to her and caught her in his arms. For the first time in years, they held each other. No words, just the weight of lost time and love. But their reunion was short. The ground shook again, harder this time. From above, a massive shadow descended, the Royal Army's flagship landing directly outside. Kale looked at them grimly. "They've sent the Emperor himself." Alera's face turned pale. "My father." Eli looked out at the flashing lights filling the corridor. "Then it's time to finish this." He turned to Lyra, who stood glowing brighter than ever, her small face determined. The child of both worlds had awakened, and she was ready to face the destiny that waited beyond those walls. The fortress trembled as the Emperor's flagship descended, its engines roaring like thunder across the night sky. The walls of crystal glowed red under the pressure of the ship's energy field. Soldiers filled the corridors, their armor gleaming silver under flashing alarms. Eli, Alera, Lyra, and Kale stood in the lower chamber, surrounded by chaos. The air was thick with smoke and the hum of alien weapons charging. Eli could hear the soldiers shouting orders in the Serenai tongue. The Emperor had arrived. Alera looked toward the great crystal doors above them, fear flickering in her eyes. "He won't stop now," she whispered. "He'll destroy everything to erase this shame." Eli gripped her hand tightly. "Then we stop him, together." Kale loaded his plasma rifle. "If we're going down, let it be for something that matters." Lyra stood between them, her pendant glowing like a small star. She was silent, but her expression was calm, too calm for a child. The air around her seemed to hum gently, responding to her heartbeat. From above, the Emperor's voice thundered through the fortress speakers. "Alera of the Serenai, you betrayed your blood for a human. Come forward and accept your fate." Alera looked up at the ceiling, her eyes glistening. "He'll kill us all if I don't face him." Eli stepped in front of her. "No, you've run long enough. He's going to hear the truth today." Kyle nodded. "There's a transport bay behind the throne room. If we reach it, we can send a message to every Serenai ship in orbit. Let them see what their ruler has become." Alera took a deep breath and nodded. "Then let's end this." They climbed the spiral stairs leading to the throne hall. As they reached the top, the huge crystal doors opened automatically. The Emperor stood waiting, tall, proud, his armor gold and white, his crown shimmering with alien fire. His eyes burned with anger and disappointment. He spoke coldly. "So it's true. You bring the human back into our sacred hall." Eli didn't flinch. "I came for her, and for our daughter." The Emperor's eyes turned to Lyra. The moment he saw her glowing pendant and violet eyes, his face hardened. "That child should not exist." Alera stepped forward. "Father, she's innocent. She carries both our blood. Proof that peace is possible between our people." The Emperor's voice grew louder. "Peace built on betrayal is poison. You defied your throne, your people, your name." Lyra suddenly walked ahead of them, her small steps echoing in the grand hall. "Mama didn't betray anyone," she said softly, but her voice carried power beyond her size. She loved. The Emperor's soldiers raised their weapons, but the moment they did, Lyra's pendant blazed bright blue. The light expanded, spreading warmth through the entire chamber. Every crystal wall shimmered and the soldiers froze in awe. Eli shielded his eyes. Lyra stopped, but Alara shook her head. "No, she's not hurting them." The blue light revealed memories in the air, like living visions floating above them. Scenes of the war, of humans and Serenai dying side by side, flashes of Alara saving wounded soldiers, and Eli protecting her when her own army turned on her. The Emperor stared at the images, his anger faltering. Lyra spoke again, her voice calm. "This is what you fear, isn't it?" The truth. The throne room fell silent. The soldiers lowered their weapons, uncertain. Even Kyle looked stunned. Alara stepped beside her daughter and faced her father. "You can destroy me, father, but you can't destroy what she is." Lyra is proof that love is stronger than hate. She is the bridge between worlds. The Emperor's eyes glistened, the fire fading from his expression. He looked at Lyra again, her small frame glowing with peace instead of rage. Finally, he turned away and said quietly, "Leave this place." "Before I change my mind," Alara hesitated, shocked. "Father, go," he said again, his voice weary. "You have already changed the course of our people." Eli took Alara's hand. Kale led them down the corridor toward the hangar. The soldiers did not stop them. The fortress that once held prisoners now stood silent. When they reached the outer gates, Alara turned back one last time. Her father stood on the balcony watching them disappear into the rising light of dawn. Moments later, their ship broke free of the planet's pull. Lyra sat by the window looking out at the stars. Eli smiled faintly. "We made it." Alara leaned against his shoulder. "No, Eli, she made it possible." As they crossed into open space, hundreds of signals appeared on their radar. Serenai ships lowering their weapons, sending peaceful transmissions instead of threats. Word had spread fast. The Queen had returned, not with war but with hope. Lyra looked at her parents and whispered, "Mama said humans never give up." Alara smiled, tears in her eyes. And she was right. The stars outside glowed brighter, as if the universe itself was listening. And for the first time in generations, two worlds that once hated each other began to heal, because of a love that defied galaxies. The end.